It's Tuesday, December 10, 2024. This is CVM News at noon. I'm Ramon Gordon. 21-year-old Omaria and Javel Brown, cousins, died after a car crash along 3 Miles River Main Road in Westmoreland early Monday. Reports say Omaria lost control of a Toyota Axio motor car around 1:15 a.m., hitting a tree. Both died at the hospital. Meanwhile, a tragic crash on the Landovery Main Road in St. Anne on Monday has claimed one life and left several others hospitalized. In a separate incident, a 3-vehicle collision occurred early Tuesday on South Camp Road in Kingston. Details about injuries and damage from that crash are still unclear. The PNP's candidate for Eastern Hanover, Andrea Perkis, is urging MP Dave Brown and the National Works Agency to address poor road conditions on the North Coast Highway. The roadway has reportedly caused several crashes recently, and Perkis says it's time for action.
You will notice that this road is the absolute worst, joining 2 major cities. There's nowhere else in the country that the road looks like this, where 2 towns are joined. We need some answers, and we need the answers now.
A 15-year-old Nakalva High School student was arrested on Monday after a gun was found in his knapsack. Reports say the student, who lives in St. James, was allegedly showing the firearm to peers when the administration intervened. The teen claimed he accidentally took his father's bag, mistaking it for his own. Detectives are set to meet with his parents today. Education Minister Senator Dana Morris Dixon is calling for greater support for teachers. During a tour of Hopewell School, she emphasized their vital role in reshaping Jamaica's future.
Are going above and beyond the call of duty to support our children. And I have to emphasize, I'm always emphasizing that schools are no longer just about the passes. Not all of them. There's some schools that are doing well, but there are many of our schools that are getting students who are struggling in life, whose parents aren't there parenting the way we want them to parent, whose communities aren't supporting them the way they should be supported and are actually taking them down the wrong path. And so our schools are having to be re-socialization elements. When you come to a school like this and you hear a school nurse say that many of my children have dental needs, but their parents won't make the appointment, and so I make it for them and I drive them there. That's what's happening in our schools. There's some important things happening and some really wonderful teachers that are going out of their way to support our children, and Jamaica really should applaud all those efforts.
Attorney Kevin Powell says the Integrity Commission remains confident in its case despite the Prime Minister being granted leave for judicial review. The review seeks to clear the Prime Minister of claims related to an Integrity Commission report that flagged his statutory declarations as uncertified.
Well, we're certainly confident in resisting the claim when we see it. As I said, at this stage, it's a preliminary hurdle that they've crossed. the Prime Minister and his companies now need to formulate an actual claim. And at that point in time, we'll then be able to see how best able to resist it.
While attorney for Prime Minister Andrew Holness is defending the decision to ask the judge to compel the Director of Information and Complaints to exonerate the Prime Minister.
The statement of the Director of Information and Complaints that he examined the 2022 and 2023 statutory declarations only came when they filed their affidavit in response to the claim. So before that, there was a long period before that where there were exchanges between the Integrity Commission and Mr. Holness's lawyers in relation to examination and certification of the declarations, and there was no response. So I think their affidavit would have come about October, and it was only in that affidavit that it indicated that there was the examination. So at the time the claim was filed, there was no indication to us that it was done. And so having included such a relief in the application, it was not unreasonable, neither was it unfounded. And so the court is saying pretty much, well, if it is done, then there's no basis then to compel them to do it.
Christmas season brings heightened festivities and an increased risk of fires. Granville Gale, CEO of National Safety Limited, shared fire safety tips this morning on Sunrise for those cooking and celebrating.
The issue with cooking many times is hot oils in the kitchen and hot oils in environments, so they easily catch a fire. So you want to ensure that you're protecting yourself. In case you have that issue, you mitigate against that risk by having an extinguisher or a fire blanket. Electrical fires are also very, very common in Jamaica. In fact, electrical fires is one of the greatest risks to fires in houses, and a lot of the fires we have had that have caused deaths in Jamaica in the last year have been as a result of electrical fires. So again, you protect yourself, you mitigate, ensure you get those things checked, but ensure you have in your house protection that can assist you if you have such incidents, and that's why we have our home safety kit. This is on your way in, on your way out. So in and out of the house, in and out of the kitchen, on the way up, on the way down. On the way upstairs, on the way downstairs, you want to have your fire extinguisher close by. Your detectors you put in areas that are occupied spaces. And in occupied spaces, you mean not in the kitchen, because it's a smoke detector, so it can go off, but nearby the kitchen, in your living room, in your bedrooms, and it will make a chirping noise when the fire is detected. So those are the kind of spaces that you want to ensure that you have. And the fire blanket, of course, you put that in the kitchen itself. Close to
fire blanket?
Yes.
How does a fire blanket work?
It's a simple principle. Oxygen is one of the things that causes a fire. So if you can get the blanket over the fire, it will remove the oxygen, and therefore the fire will be out. So if somebody's on fire, you can take the blanket and put it over them. If you have a fire on your stove, you can put the blanket over the fire. You have large fire blankets even for motor vehicles.
Traffic changes and vending zones in downtown Kingston have shown mixed results. The mayor and his team toured the area yesterday to assess the situation. Adrian Williams has the details.
Today, Mayor of Kingston, Andrew Swaby, and the team walked the downtown area to see the impact of traffic changes and how vendors have been complying.
Overall, they are compliant. I am impressed with Haywood Street. I am not impressed with Beckford Street. We have had an agreement, we have had countless of consultation on this matter, and we have agreed to certain standards. And some vendors are not holding up to standards. And what we are saying to them is we are going to hold up to standards. It doesn't matter who you are, is that we have agreed, and we are saying to you, just stick by the agreement.
The mayor is giving the vendors some more time to adjust and says he just may have to call a meeting with Beckford Street vendors, as he would not want to have to ask them to move.
It doesn't matter who you are, is that we have agreed, and we are saying to you, just stick by the agreement. That's all we are saying. The police have indicated to them what needs to be corrected, so I'm watching to see. If by Wednesday I'm not seeing that, then clearly that there will be a need to go back to the drawing board and have a discussion.
Superintendent of Police for the Kingston Central Division, Beresford Williams, is pleased with the improvement so far and looks forward to working with the vendors to resolve.
And with that, we take a break. More news after this.
tiles and get creative with your floors, walls, and all the spaces in between. Our knowledgeable sales consultants are happy to help create your beautiful finish with the latest designs in first quality porcelain, wood look, vinyl, mosaics, natural stones, and countertops. At Creative, you will get every tile you need for your residential or commercial projects. Creative Building Finishes, your one-stop shop for everything tiles. Visit our showroom at 5 Red Hills Road or call 876-929-5553. Get tiles, get creative.
Make money now with local City and Guilds and ABE endorsed certificates and Distinction College. Start new online and face-to-face classes very soon in our Make Money Now career courses and get qualified jobs worldwide or start your own business in practical pediatric, geriatric, and psychiatric nursing, phlebotomy and pharmacy technician, early childhood education, child care, cashiering, call center, event planning, receptionist, customer service, housekeeping, waitering, food preparation, bartending, cake baking, plumbing, motor vehicle, electrical installation, air conditioning, makeup, hairdressing, nail technician, and cosmetology. No subjects acquired, no age limit. Register this week and get City and Guilds Maths and English classes for free. Call us at 3564167.
Welcome back. You're watching CVM News at noon. Human rights in Jamaica are under the spotlight with calls for a National Human Rights Institute to replace the Office of the Public Defender. This comes as the world marks today, December 10, as International Human Rights Day. Joining us to discuss this and other key issues is Mikel Jackson, Executive Director at Jamaicans for Justice. Ms. Jackson, always a pleasure. Welcome and thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon and happy Human Rights Day to you and your viewers.
Very nice. Let's kick things off. JFJ has proposed replacing the public defender with a National Human Rights Institute. Now, for our viewers, what specific features would make this institute more effective and what even would it look like?
I think we can start from a place of appreciating that this is a commitment that the government of Jamaica made as far back as 2014 and even before that. No, I just wanted to place that in perspective. The other thing I want the public to appreciate is that we do have an Office of the Public Defender, but we have some institutional weaknesses of that body. For example, the body is a single person, so to speak, in terms of who's empowered to speak on behalf of the Public Defender's Office. So while you have staff members that are staff there, you're talking about an ombudsman approach, and we want a more commission style approach where you have several individuals who are empowered to oversee the office, which is why we're asking for it to be established into a national human rights institution. The other thing for us to look at is what exactly is the mandate of the Public Defender's Office at this moment. The Public Defender, by law, is empowered to investigate human rights violation, but by law, they're not empowered or mandated to promote human rights in this country. So one of the things we're asking for, let us strengthen the public defender model into a more commission-style institution to ensure that, one, they are empowered to promote human rights. Today's National Human Rights Day. How much of our rights are we aware of as a citizen? Who is actively speaking on behalf of our rights in this particular context as we're talking about advancing human rights in Jamaica? What are some of the rights that the public defender is even empowered to investigate? We know that we have what we call social and economic and political rights, civil rights, your right to vote, your right to be involved in political participation. Those are the earlier rights. But the public defender, as it is currently structured, is not empowered to focus on the more, what you would say, modern day rights, your social and cultural rights.
Ms. Jackson, what are some of those more?
We have the right to work, the right to health. Those are some of the rights we want the office to be more broadened in scope to deal with.
Very well.
It's a mouthful, but I just wanted to put that in context.
No, fantastic. You preempted my next question, but let me ask you this. How can we ensure a National Human Rights Institute is protected from political interference and has sustainable funding? And I ask this amid conversations happening on the ground, conversations I'm sure you're well privy to.
Well, currently, the Constitutional Reform Committee had indicated that they would want the public defender to be entrenched in the Constitution. That in and of itself is a protection. The caution that JFJ has is that the public defender model, as I articulated earlier, they have some weaknesses. For example, the public defender itself can't go before the courts. So when we're talking about a national human rights institution, we're talking about fixing some of the gaps that you have with the public defender model, but also protecting the NHRI into the Constitution by making it entrenched from political interference. You can't see, like what happened with the political ombudsman, where a government can use its simple majority to disband a body because it would be entrenched, meaning that it would require 2/3 majority vote to see any significant changes being made. And part of the protection is also the funding. For example, when you look at the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, how your court system and your judges, for example, are compensated, they are protected by law. And that's a similar provision that we're calling for.
Ms. Jackson, I have you here. I have to ask you, did you see the video of the alleged robbers in Spalding, I think it was, in a police station going live, saying that they were being beaten by police officers? What do you make of that incident, and what does it suggest about broader policing culture in Jamaica, you'd say?
I think the first thing is that we have to congratulate the police officers who demonstrably showed professionalism. But I think there is also a caution for us in that moment, wherein, and by the way, let me be very clear, we condemn all acts of violence that are perpetrated by any individual. But it is also concerning for us that individuals may believe that they have to go live for them not to be killed by security forces. So there is that little cause for concern, but we must applaud our security forces for how professional they were and how quickly they responded to that particular incident. And we are happy that no lives were lost.
Very well. Now, Mikel, Jamaica has made strides in human rights, but in which areas do you think progress has been unacceptably slow?
Unacceptably slow in terms of, for example, police lockup. And I think we see some areas that we're regressing in. I put in context, for example, that Jamaica has now exceeded the numbers of police-involved fatal shootings. And I think we have now recorded the highest number since 2013. We have exceeded the 170 mark based on my last check with Indicom, and that is a cause for concern. And the other thing I want to put in context here is just generally for citizens to be a little bit more engaged in the democratic process. Be aware of your rights. And even though the crime rate is high, let us not be as quick to give up our rights because they are hard fought and you don't want them to be easily lost. When we start talking about the crime rate is high, and therefore I am okay with having the state having certain types of powers that can easily see persons' rights being violated by the state. That is the caution I would give to the Jamaican people. Be more aware and call for broadening of your human rights. We have a constitutional reform process happening. How do we say I want an expansion of my rights? For example, the basic right to education stop at primary levels. We want the right to education perhaps to go up to tertiary level. We want the right to work, the right to health. Those are the kind of things I would want the Jamaican people to be more aware about and to call for a little bit more from the state.
Very thankful for that call to action. Let's turn to a positive note. I'm going to ask you the same question I asked a while ago, but just on the flip. What aspect of Jamaican human rights are you most proud of, or development so far?
The 2011 Charter of Fundamental Rights and Freedom. We have our constitutional rights spelled out in Jamaica, and though there are errors, the fact that we have that is something to be applauded and celebrated. The fact that we have an independent court system that can actually make a declaration that a law is not only incompatible with our constitution, but that it can be struck down is also something. United Kingdom, by the way, their courts are not even empowered to strike down a law. Our courts are, because our constitution is the supreme law, and we have made great strides in that respect.
Mikel, before you go, I have to ask you this. If you could amend 3 elements of Jamaica's Charter of Fundamental Rights and Freedoms, what would they be?
The inclusion of the National Human Rights Institute, expansion of our fundamental rights and freedoms to include the right to health, right to education at the tertiary level. And thirdly, greater protection from discrimination. For example, we are protected from discrimination on the basis of being male and female, place of origin, and so on. But we are not protected on the basis of gender identity, health status, for example, people living with HIV. So those categories need to be broadened. So those are my top 3.
Very well. Always a pleasure, Mikel. That was Mikel Jackson, Executive Director at Jamaicans for Justice. Thank you always for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Moving on to international news, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu appeared in court for the first time today to testify in his corruption trial. He faces charges of fraud, breach of trust and bribery stemming from cases dating back to 2019. Here's more from Al Jazeera.
Syrians are currently celebrating the fall of the head of the Syrian regime, the former Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. Hundreds of thousands are now gathering in the most significant squares in the city of Hama, celebrating this historic event in the history of the Syrian revolution. As they say,